This is Brandon with Fleet Feet, and today we've got something very exciting in store for all of you, and that is a Saucony roundup of some of the shoes that we've received this year. I'm so excited about this. I think Saucony is one of the big players right now in the running shoe game, and let me dive into some of the shoes and explain why. The first shoe on our list is a daily trainer and probably one of the most popular running shoes from Saucony, and that is the Saucony Ride 17. This shoe is best for easy runs, long runs, and everyday miles. It has an engineered mesh upper, it has a Power Run Plus midsole, as well as a cushioned sock liner and an outsole rubber. The shoe comes in with an 8mm drop of a 35mm stack in the heel and 27 in the toe, and the shoe comes in at $140. Like I mentioned, the upper of this shoe is made up of an engineered mesh upper, which I found to be quite breathable. And one of the big things that I want to highlight is that there is this wrapping or overlay wrapping that is quite sturdy that runs through the shoe. Just this black part here that wraps on both sides that go straight to where the lacing system is. It actually has a pretty plush and cushioned tongue. It also has a gusset in here for a little bit of a better lockdown fit around the midfoot. I had no issues with heel lock in this shoe, and I found that there was just enough room in the toes for any toe splay. Really no issues with hot spots or blisters in this shoe. I found that the upper worked really well for me. The midsole is made up of Power Run Plus, which is an upgraded version from the previous model, which just had Power Run in it. This is going to be a more dynamic and a little bit more cushioned and a softer ride than the previous model. After running in the last model and this model, I can agree that it is a little bit softer, it is more dynamic, and it's a bit faster on foot. I do think that the ride and the midsole cushioning of the shoe got the right upgrades in all of the right areas. This shoe is a daily trainer, and it does have a pretty cushioned and plush ride, but it still is pretty balanced with a neutral feel, and it's still got a bit of a firmer and responsive ride as well. Again, I would mainly use this as my daily trainer companion. I don't think this is a shoe that I'd want to pick up the pace in, but it is a shoe that you can log a ton of miles in. You could probably get up to 400 miles or more, and that is thanks to this outsole rubber coverage. There is enough here that's going to hold up for a very long time, and the shoe is pretty comparable in weight. It is just under that 10-ounce range for the men's size model, so it does start to teeter on that heavier side for daily trainers. It's still under that 10 ounces, which I think is important for Saucony. With the higher stack of this shoe coming up to 35mm, it definitely has a lot of protection and cushioning underfoot, which is something that I personally enjoyed a lot. So if you're someone who likes a higher stack shoe, I think that this would work for you. And this shoe comes in at $140, which is a pretty good price at a bang for your buck, and it lines pretty competitively with a lot of the other daily trainers on the market. I personally think that this shoe is worth the $140, and if you're just looking for a daily trainer from Saucony, I think that this is a good option. The Fleet Feet team agreed that the biggest update and upgrade to this shoe that they enjoyed the most was the transition from Power Run to Power Run Plus. That feeling of just a more cushioned and dynamic ride, just making it a little bit softer on foot, just provided a more pleasant and smooth experience overall, which is something that I think every runner is looking for. Moving on to the next shoe, we have the Saucony Guide 17, which is going to be your stability daily trainer from Saucony. This shoe is best for easy runs, long run days, everyday miles. The upper is made up of a mesh upper, the midsole is made up of Power Run, and the outsole is a standard rubber coverage. The men's model comes in at 9.4 ounces or 266 grams. The women's model at 8.1 ounces or 229 grams. It has a 6mm drop with 35 in the heel and 29 in the toe, and the shoe comes in at $140. Personally, for myself, I'm not usually someone who needs stability, but after testing this shoe, I didn't feel like this shoe was pushing me in any sort of way or changing my cadence or stride, which I loved. And myself and the Fleet Feet team agree that this is a shoe that is great for someone who is looking for a stability shoe but hasn't really tried one in the past. This is a great introduction. So the upper, like I said, is made up of an engineered mesh upper. It definitely has a wider upper than that of the Ride 17. So if you have a wider foot, then this will accommodate that much better. It's definitely more boxy in shape and feel than that of the Ride 17. But even with my narrow foot, I found that there weren't any lockdown issues in the heel or the midfoot, but I did have a lot of room. So if you're someone who likes a lot of room in the toe box, then I think that this shoe will work for you. It's also very breathable, and you can tell that there's good ventilation throughout the shoe, so no issues there. The overlays of this shoe are much more minimal than that of the Ride 17, and I'm assuming that this is an area where Saucony was just trying to cut and save some weight. The midsole is made up of Power Run, which is a bit of a firmer foam on foot. And I find that stability shoes in general usually ride a little bit firmer because they just need, well, that stability on foot. And if you have a more cushioned shoe, sometimes it can lead to more instability. So I can understand why they decided to go with a bit of a firmer foam here. But what I will say is with the stack of this shoe going all the way up to 35 millimeters, you get a lot of protection on foot. Saucony decided that they were going to change how they implement stability in their shoes, and that is through something that they call center path technology. Center path technology can be broken up into three parts. The first one being that it has a much wider platform, so that way it creates more stability. The higher sidewalls create a cradle system for your foot, so that way you're not leaning one way or the other when you're running through your stride. And the shoe is asymmetrical in shape, especially around the heel, which is going to help those who need a little bit more durability or strengthening in some particular areas. And of course, the outsole rubber here, I didn't have any issues with it, but it is a very wide base and it is quite durable. So I do think that if you were going to run in this shoe, expect it to hold up just as well as any other daily trainer on the market right now, especially with that firmer foam. I just don't think it's going to die out very soon on you. The Fleet Feet team across the board agrees that this shoe isn't one that's going to offer that premium feel like some of the other shoes that I'm going to mention later in the line, but it is a great shoe for someone who is being introduced to stability shoes and is looking for something that is just going to help guide them through their runs. The next shoe on our list is the Saucony Triumph 22, which is a max cushioned daily trainer. This shoe is best for easy runs and long run days. The upper is made up of an engineered mesh upper, the midsole gets Power Run PB, and the outsole is a standard rubber coverage. The men's model of this shoe comes in at 10.1 ounces or 286 grams, 8.8 ounces or 250 grams for the women's model, and it has a 10 millimeter drop with a 37 millimeters in the heel and 27 in the toe, and the shoe costs $160. For those max cushion lovers out there, this would probably be the shoe for you. I've gotten a few miles in it already, and here's what I've got to say about it. The upper of this shoe is going to be very protective, but it actually isn't going to be as breathable as the other two shoes that I've mentioned, the Ride and the Guide. The tongue is much more plush and padded, and the heel collar is very comfortable but very plush as well, and the tongue is gusseted. The upper of this shoe is also very wide and boxy, similar to that of the Saucony Guide, though I will say there was pretty good lockdown fit in the heel and in the midfoot, but it was just way too big around the toe, and the length of this shoe was just a little off. So I do recommend that if you are going to try this shoe, try it out in a few different sizes, maybe go a half size down and get your normal size and decide which one you like. The midsole gets an upgrade from Power Run Plus to Power Run PB, which is what you can find in the Saucony Endorphin Speed and in the Pro. Power Run PB is meant to be the faster and more responsive foam than that of Power Run Plus. Yes, it is very responsive and it is quite dynamic for a Triumph, but where I think it falls short is in that cushion category. It doesn't really have that very plush or cushioned ride. I think it borders the line between a cushioned shoe and a more firm shoe. It's hard to tell. I think sometimes I'm like, well, this is a very firm shoe or it's a very cushioned shoe. I'm not so sure where it lands just yet. So where I do think that this shoe really wins is in like the long run category. This is a shoe that I think you can find a nice smooth rolling transition and is going to lock into a nice cadence over time. Also, with the more responsive foam that we have here, it's not going to deaden out or compress too much. So what you're going to find is that in those later miles of a run, this shoe won't compress as much. It's going to be more responsive. It's going to help carry you a little bit longer through your run. I didn't have any issues with the rubber coverage or the outsole here. There were no issues for me. So really just overall, this shoe was really good. I do think that there is an opportunity for them to cut some weight in some areas. I'm not sure if it's in the upper just yet or if it's in the outsole rubber, but I do think that the shoe is a little bit on the heavier side, and I would like to see Saucony just to try and cut some weight in a few areas for the future. One of the big things that the Fleet Feet team would like to see changed about this shoe is in the upper. They found that the fit was just too big, and I agree. So hopefully that they can change that for the future. All right, so we've talked about the Ride, we've talked about the Guide, and we've talked about the Triumph, and now we're gonna get into the Endorphin series a little bit. And the first one on my list is going to be the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 is a tempo day shoe. This is best for those workouts or speed days when you're just trying to pick up the pace. The upper is made up of a mesh upper, the midsole is made up of Power Run PB, and it has a nylon winged plate, and the outsole is made up of a lattice outsole rubber. The men's model comes in at 8.2 ounces or 233 grams, the women's model at 7.2 ounces or 206 grams. It has an 8mm drop, 36 in the heel and 28 in the toe, and the shoe comes in at $170. So Saucony is now on their 4th iteration of the Speed series, and I gotta say, I think this is my favorite Speed yet, and I think a lot of the team across the board agrees that they love this shoe, and it is a huge fan favorite. The upper of this shoe is a mesh upper, and it is very breathable, it's very light on foot, and I found that it just fit really well with my narrow foot. You can already tell that the shape of it is really nice. It has a nice sleek design, which I love. It had some minimal overlays for just a little bit of extra protection on foot, which I think is going to be very helpful, especially when you're just going through your stride and you want to keep this shoe locked in, very secure on foot. The tongue is also gusseted, which adds a little bit more reinforcement lockdown around the midfoot. I had no issues with heel lock in this shoe, and just going through my stride, the upper overall was great. Moving down to the midsole, the Power Run PB is one of my favorite qualities about this shoe. Not only is it dynamic, it's very fast, it is snappy, and it is very propulsive, and you can tell that that's coupled with the nylon winged plate that's in the middle of the shoe here, which just adds that sort of flexibility and responsive kickback that you would be looking for in a tempo day or speed day shoe. This shoe is very fun, and it's just playful, and it's not too aggressive. It really balances that cushioned to fast ratio. This is probably my favorite tempo day shoe or speed day shoe every year, so I give it very high praises, but I also have very high expectations for it. So when Saucony comes out with a better shoe than the one previous, I always get very excited by that. Also, the integration of just a subtle speed roll technology just makes it really nice and smooth through my stride, so that was something that I really loved. Honestly, I'm not so sure that there's too much that I would change about this shoe, especially from a midsole perspective. It really locks in well. One other thing I want to mention about this shoe is that it has a super responsive sock liner, which is just going to add a bit more protection and add to the bouncy feeling that you get on foot. And at $170, I know that we're kind of moving up a little bit more in price point, but I do think that this is absolutely worth it even at that price point. Overall, the team generally agrees that they enjoy the pop and bounce and energy return that they get from this shoe, and across the board, it was just a huge fan favorite. And the last shoe on our list is the Saucony Endorphin Pro 4. The Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 is a race day shoe. It has a mesh upper and 2 midsole foams. It has Power Run HG, which is what you can find in the Saucony Endorphin Elite, and it has Power Run PB, which is what you can find in the Speed and in the Pro 3. It has a super responsive sock liner and a full-length carbon fiber plate and a latticed designed outsole. The shoe comes in at a very light weight of 7.5 ounces or 212 grams for the men's model and 6.5 ounces or 185 grams for the women's model. The shoe has an 8mm drop with 39.5 in the heel and 31.5 in the toe, and it comes in at $225. This is one of Saucony's premier race day shoes and one of the most versatile on the market, I would argue. This is a shoe that you could race all the way from the 5K all the way to the marathon distance. The upper of this shoe is a little bit different than that of the previous models that I've mentioned from Saucony, and that is because of the booty constructed designed upper from the tongue. The tongue is actually sewn in with the rest of the upper, so it's not gusseted, but it actually connects really nicely with the rest of the shoe, which I like. The tongue is also quite stretchy, but overall around the upper of this shoe, there is minimal padding, and there was a large focus on creating a shoe that was lightweight, very breathable in the upper, and locked your foot down very well. I believe that Saucony has achieved that. When I put my foot in this shoe, it just locks in perfectly, which I love. And the subtle but minimal overlays in the shoe just add that little bit of protection, but overall, I found that it was just really there for aesthetics and design, but I generally loved it. I do like the look and profile feel of this shoe. It feels very race day, it feels very sleek, and it feels very ready to roll. Moving down to the midsole, you have a top layer of Power Run HG, which is going to be a bit more firm and more responsive on foot, and then you get this nice soft landing with the Power Run PB. Running in between these two foams, you have a carbon fiber plate that actually just adds a little bit more stiffness and rigidity in the shoe. It's not as flexible than the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, But when you're racing and you're going at those faster cadences and those faster speeds, you want a bit of a stiffer feel on foot. So I can understand why Saucony decided that they were going to just make a bit of a more rigid plate to go with this shoe for a more aggressive feel. At $225, I believe that this shoe can really do it all. It can go from the 5K distance all the way to the marathon distance. You can pick up your speed. It has a lot of the same cushioning and feel to that of the third model. So if you did like the third model, you're going to like the fourth as well. Overall, the Fleet Feet team found that this shoe was very propulsive, but balanced a very cushioned and relaxed feel underfoot as well. And for $225, I do think that this shoe is going to be a winner for a lot of people, and it would be hard to decide to not pick this shoe. The $225 price point fits right in the middle of a lot of other race day shoes that are coming out right now. I do believe that Saucony has created a race day shoe that is just as strong as some of the other super shoes on the market. What's great about this shoe compared to all of the other race day shoes that are on the market right now is that I think that this is the most versatile. It's stiff and aggressive enough for a 5K, but it's also cushioned enough for the marathon distance. So I do think that this is a playful and fun shoe that you can take in a variety of different directions, which is one of the things that I think makes this shoe unique to a lot of other race day shoes right now. So that is a full roundup of some of the Saucony shoes that you can get excited about in 2024, starting with the Ride 17, which is their daily trainer, the Guide 17, which is their stability daily trainer, the Triumph 22, which is their max cushion shoe, the Endorphin Speed 4, which is going to be best for those tempo days and speed workouts, and of course their race day shoe, which is the Endorphin Pro 4. If you're excited about Saucony shoes and you want to learn more about them, you can check out our other reviews on YouTube. We also have a written version of all of these shoes on the blog at fleetfeet.com. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow us on all of our other channels like Instagram, Facebook, Strava, TikTok, and stay tuned for when the next video comes out.